myself again. But it's the only...
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters. It's Friday night, which means it's the Three Amigos night. I'm joined as always by Mitch and Steve Hasty. Good evening, lads.
Evening, Steve.
All right.
Good to see you, Mitch. Good to see you in the pub, you lucky bugger. None of us can do that, but you can across there. Fantastic. And you've got your drink here, Desperados. Probably, we usually get a question asking what you're drinking, so we're not going to have time to ask that because of what other guest. It's a big welcome to Keith Patterson from NCSL 1892. Good evening, Keith.
Good evening, lads, and thanks for inviting us on.
No, great to see you,
right,
mate.
Keith.
And I know you're going to get a lot of support tonight. I know you're going to get a lot of questions. And I'm pretty sure Steve and Mitch are realising that we're probably not going to get a great deal to say tonight. But please pitch in, lads. Make sure that we. I think what we need to do is give Keith a chance really to speak first of all, and then we'll broach some other subjects. Maybe in the second half of the show, split it into two. So. Keith, just give us a little background on your Newcastle United supporting days. When did you first go to St James's Park and become a Newcastle fan?
First started supporting in 1969. My dad had a pub in Durham, and people were singing about winning the first cup. Bobby Moncur with the first cup in his hand, and they was put on the shoulders. I was only a bairn, and then my brother took us to my first game in 1970 against Crystal Palace at home. I remember putting us Barry in the Leazes end. And I sat for about 10 minutes, looked at him. I said, "Where's the bloke? I can tell you who's got the ball," because I actually thought the commentator told you who was playing. And then I went right the way through. I went to every game in the 74 Cup run. I went to Wembley with my brother. And since then, I've been going to Wembley every time we've played. And we counted up the other day that the score was 17-2 to the other team. So I've had a lot of misery. And if I start sporting in 69, you can say I'm a bit of a jinx because we've won out since.
You and a few others, mate. You and a few others. As far as the group is concerned, we followed it with interest right from the start. We didn't know who was behind it or anything. Tell us a little bit first and foremost. How did NCSL 1892 come about?
It started on August the 5th, and I was talking to a lad from Bishop called Peter, and he asked me if I would do a letter to Richard Masters, which I was well on with. And when I did it, he asked us if he would have a copy, and he put it on Facebook. But the problem is he put my name on it, and I just got all these friends requests from people from Newcastle. And he said it went viral, and then he met some lads from Newcastle, and he put it on Twitter and said it had 100,000 views in a crack. So then he decided that the way to go forward is to form a group for fans to get behind it, to take the Premier League on. And he formed a group which is well known called War Fund. And there was 3-4 lads picked that up and did it. On the 5th of August, I wrote to Richard Masters, and on the 6th of August, another fan did, a guy from Surrey called Gordon Steen, and people tried to put us in touch. So basically, we spoke to Gordon. And the funny thing is, NCSL is just me and Gordon Steen now. There's only two of us in it. Other people say there's more, but it's not true. It's just two people. And I've never met the lad. So, that's the thing with Newcastle fans is you don't necessarily have to meet and be in each other's pockets to do something worthwhile. And he and I are now in NCSL, but he's got a lot of senses going. He's an FD, C-level employee, and he's going back to work next week. And somebody said to me, "What do you think of that?" And I said, "I wish I was sat on his knee when he's at work," because it's tough and it's been a difficult journey, but. Gordon's he's had his CV attacked. He's been attacked as verbally attacked, and you're just looking at it and you sometimes think, why am I doing this? Because we're just two ordinary fans. We're no different to anybody that would stand next to at the match. The only thing is, my background took us into competition actions, and what I saw that the Premier League were doing against the club was anti-competitive, and I had contacts in that field. I had some very good friends, and I spoke to a lot of people, and we built a case. And what happened is the other lads pushed War Fund along. And if it had worked, because a lot of people would be surprised I say this, if War Fund had took off and if the fans had got behind it and put money to it, it would have been a class action amongst fans against the Premier League. And the sad news is it would have been in court now. So the people who said it was a scam, which it clearly wasn't, because the War Fund lads give everybody the money back. I put 3 figures into it and I got it back. But 60% of what went into War Fund was that crowd of people's monies. So they weren't trying to do anything. They were just doing it with their own. And what they were trying to do is get everybody, say, to put a fiver in. And the bones, if that had happened, it would have been in court now, and it would have been definitely a leverage tool. It would have been, people would have been squeaking now, trust me. So that went, that went down, and the people got the money back. So Gordon and I then formed NCSL. There's only 2 people in it. You check out a company's house. There's only 2 people put money into it. It's self-funded. We're not going to ask anybody for any money. So people are nervous that we might come back and say, are you going to donate? That ship has long sailed. If people were going to donate, the time to do it was with the War Fund lads, but that's gone now. And there's just us 2 doing it, and shortly in a week's time it'll just be me. So, go easy on us, people, because it's the hours that I'm doing are crazy. I haven't been to bed before 2:30 since the 2nd of December, and it's been, I missed one night's sleep, and it's been 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, and it just to cope with the whole thing and people understand what it's about is a difficult task. It's not a chat, debate. Don't worry if you don't think there's going to be a takeover. Talk to us and we'll keep you sweet. It's not that at all. It's just 2 fans who think they could make a difference. And what they did was they put their own money down to have a challenge. And I think if you want to judge whether, a lot of people judge and say things like your Boris Johnson letter, the mood was wrong. And I just think, how good was yours? The letter you did, how did that go? Because I write a letter from my heart, and if I come over as being a little bit, let's say, terse or a little bit chewed, it's because I was absolutely stunning when I was writing the letter to him. I was writing a letter about hundreds of millions not coming to Newcastle, and I was writing about it's okay for Tottenham to have this, it's okay for Man United to sit at the table for him, but it's not good enough for Newcastle. So when I'd finished writing that letter, and I was reading letters from Boris Johnson saying government can't get involved, and then I read the Chronicle where you were involved, yeah, of course I was chewed up. And then people sit there and they think they're my school teacher and they're going to sit and mark my homework. And I think, really? And I think that's the one thing I've learned of social media is it's about choices. Who you want to read, who you want to follow, who you want to believe in. But also, I have a choice. Who do I want to listen to? And if somebody, you can read in a tweet whether somebody's with you or not. And I mean, the company's called Newcastle Consortium Supporters. And somebody said, well, this week, they said, a lot of people think it's Newcastle Supporters Consortium. That's maybe the confusion because they think maybe it's a consortium of supporters. No, it's not. It's 2 lads that support the consortium. We should have put Newcastle PCP Consortium Supporters, and that would have explained it a bit better. But that's how it's come about, and we're just 2 lads just doing the fighting for this takeover. Not Henry Morris, just this one.
Lots of questions coming in. We will come to the questions. What I've done is essentially fielded a lot of questions on social media since we announced this a couple of days ago. So I've taken the majority of them and mixed them up into a topic list, if you like. You've picked your contacts. Liam Kennedy, Lee Ryder. Why those two people in particular?
Because I didn't have any football contacts when I started. I'd never been on Twitter till 5 weeks ago, but I didn't have any press contacts in football. So what I did was I put some feelers out. I did a little bit of work with Mark Douglas. He was great. And then as I watched things getting written, I was looking at what people were saying and thinking, I wonder who run the story. And what I did was I reached out to a couple of people, and I would say trust. I did it on trust. So I was looking at the kind of way they write, and then I had BBC on twice for interviews. I had ITV on, and there's risk involved there. If you get an interview on TV and it doesn't, people can ask you the wrong question. And some of the questions you put today, I'll try and answer everything I can, and I will try and be everything that fans want us to be. But ultimately, my goal and my motivation is to win a takeover. So I apologise, and if I see something I don't like, I'll say I'm not answering that, because I guess 2 reasons. 1, I know what I can risk, and 2, I don't have to. So that's what it is. But when it comes to press and going to Liam, is when this is over, if somebody said to me, who have you met in this journey that you'll keep in touch with afterwards, it'd be Liam Kennedy. He's despite what people want to say about him, he's mega honest. He's so honest. He's beaten me on to my house. I've sat with him for 5 hours, and he's just a straight fella. And if people don't like him, then you're probably not like me either. So hey ho, I'll get over it. I'm sure he will. But he's a cracking lad. Lee Ryder, saying lots of things about what he is, what he isn't, and I just find him the same. I think the big answer is he's a Newcastle fan, and they stand out as people that support Newcastle. So all I'm here for, the minute this takeover happens, the light goes off, and I go back to being who I was, and I cannot wait. It can't happen a day too soon. Lee Ryder and Liam Kennedy are fans, so they want this takeover like we want it. So would I give a story to someone who supports Bradford City or Oxford United or Liam Kennedy and Lee Ryder? So long answer, but I've had a lot of criticism for giving it just to Liam, really.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. You need friends in the media, and you've picked a good one there as far as we're concerned. I also want to say thank you for choosing NUFC Matters for coming out and speaking and answering these questions. It's great for us, and I know it'll be good for you. We've got a lot of big Newcastle fans who tune in each night. So thanks for that. Mike Ashley, out or Mike Ashley in?
It's a great question. And you'll gather that I'm not trying to win popularity votes, but if Mike Ashley goes out, and I hear people say they want to campaign for Mike Ashley out, then I'll switch the light off, because the only man that's going to do the deal isn't NCSL. It's not going to be Keith Patterson, trust us. Gordon Stein will be the first one to back us up on this. The only man that will do this deal is not Nick DeMarco, it's Mike Ashley. And what I can say to you is that man's, if you look at the people he's got that's been announced in the press, and I know the price of competition QCs and lawyers, that man's spending a fortune, and I don't want to make up or put a story together to give credibility for what the last 14 years has been. What I want to say to you is when somebody turns around and says to you, I want to sell, and that's what the checks we did at the start before we start spending anything was, we wanted to know if there's a willing buyer and a willing seller. That's all we need to know, because there was no point in us doing what we were doing. When Mike Ashley says, I want to sell it, and trusts us he wants to sell as much as I want it to happen, then you've got to say, well, why aim the tanks on him? Because if you're going to meet your wife tomorrow, or your ex-wife, and she's been horrible for 10 years, and you meet her at the court, and she's going to sign a divorce, would you give her a slap before you went in? You'd just either ignore her or be polite, wait till she's a divorce, and then maybe say what you want to say afterwards. But people will always have things they want to say against people, and everybody will have the reasons for liking and disliking previous owners. But there's two things I'd say on it. One is, if it wasn't for Mike Ashley's money, we might have been a Sunderland. That's the reason. But I remember the Keegan days, but some of the best days of my life. So I miss them as much as anybody. And the reason I'm fighting for this consortium, because I want new owners. But then you've got to go back and see. He did put his hands up and say, look, this isn't about billionaires anymore. It's about bigger. And we always thought when Abramovich took over, we couldn't compete. We've got a part of this consortium, 10% worth more than Abramovich, 17 billion, we tell us. So to me, I've heard all the Henry Morris. I've heard all the Saudi coming over the hill with $1 billion in his backsack. I've heard all that. I've heard them stories which I call disruptors. I call people that write press to tell you something's going to happen. So I go to my sources and I say, is that real? And they say, no, it's a load of rubbish, Keith. And so these stories that we get that say that is another bid and it's one buyer and it's not PCP, I think is rubbish. I think it's absolute baloney. And I think if you buy that story, that's your choice, but I'm not going to. And if you're talking on Twitter about it and people are still labouring the story, I'll just get out. I don't hear it. So Mike Ashley in to get him out. You understand? So, and we won't get him out if we don't keep him in. And I don't know if that makes sense to people, but it does to me. It does to me. And all I can say is, on the dealings I've had with anybody in this whole journey, have been brilliant. I've been well looked after, and I'm satisfied as a person. I'm not going to go into who I know, who I talk to, because I could pull you three tonight on here and say, you've been priceless, how you've gone through this journey of taking crap off people and have never ever had to trade anything. You've never ever let your guard down. You never let say, I know this, I know that, but I know you lot know a lot. And that's all I'm going to say. And I think people know a lot when they can guard and preserve and respect and protect their sources. So if a man comes on Twitter and says to me, tell us your source or else, I just say, where's that button at? And seriously, I just think, I've got nothing in it. I can only lose, I can't gain. I know Steve Acey started to laugh because he's probably seen it. You know what I mean, don't you, Steve?
I do. I know exactly what you mean, and we've had this conversation, and you're absolutely spot on, and you don't need it, and you can't do it, and you do it the right way.
But if I've got, if like today I had 38 DMs on Twitter, that's like 38 emails down there, and then there's be 200 tweets and comments and all this, and then I've got 4 emails. I've had an hour and a quarter to talk to somebody in government, and you're doing all this unpaid. You don't get anything for it, and likelihood you're not going to get anything for it. It's just you'll not get your expenses back because it's not how it works. You know what I mean? If people win a court case, you can get your expenses back, but the way it's going, I don't think it'll get the court. I don't think it'll settle in a court case. And if I was against this case, I wouldn't be risking it going to court. But when I watched you three, I saw all the copy beforehand. I watched it over the months, and I didn't know what it meant. You know, until 5 weeks ago, I didn't know what a troll was. And so then I watched, and you know, I've seen you having bits of battles online and things like that, and I just hats off to you, or caps on to you. You got your caps.
Where's me hat?
Which hasn't got it. But I don't know how you three take some of what you take and put up with it so long. And personally, I wouldn't be able to. So I haven't got, I like the work. If you think about 99, they've told us 99 point, we worked out on a tweet we did, 300,000. We went through the tweet, and a Twitter organisation showed that there was 30 objections to a 300,000 kind of review thing. And they worked out, it comes out about 0.3%. And if 99.7 people support what you do, surely you should spend your time talking to them and then trying to win a takeover. But with you, and I've noticed with Steve over the last few weeks, since he's done, being careful before you tweet and all that, I noticed Steve's going another route, and he's unblocking people, he's chatting to people, and crap under him, you know what I mean? He's got more energy than me, and he's built a business around it, and a good one at that, but I haven't got that energy or desire or patience, I don't think. I think I just focus to say, once this... See, I haven't got an after this kind of ambition. So once this is done, I'm going to go back to being who I was. And the bloke I am is a private bloke who has a nice life. So I'm going to go back to that. But you people, I knew Steve Hasty 25, 30 years ago. And he asked us to come on the show. And he was the first one who said, and I said to him at the time, I said, I don't think it's me. Like, I've got the face for radio, and I'm going to go on there and I'm going to get battered. So I'd rather just not take the rubbish that comes along. But I said to Steve Hasty, if I do it, I'll come back to you. And I come back to him this week, and I said, maybe now's the time. And 30 years ago, 25 years ago, Save Our Seats, I was standing up and doing leaflets for him. And when he was, somebody said, you need to go on there. And he said, Matt, it's because Steve Hasty's on talking about you. And I looked, I says, I don't even know him. And then I saw a picture when he was younger, and I said, bloody hell, it's the same bloke, lad. So amazing stuff, and again, thanks for coming on tonight.
You mentioned the trolls. It's not really worth discussion. That's our world. We're used to that, unfortunately, and we've had our heads above this proverbial parapet for years and had to deal with this on a regular basis. And social media, it doesn't really make it any different. I mean, to be honest, would I rather somebody was sending a tweet than coming up to us in a pub and having a pop? Yeah, probably, because you can just delete it and move on. But yeah, it's if you're going to do this and you're going to put your head above the parapet, that's what happens, unfortunately.
Yeah, I get that.
Will we ever get the takeover?
Trust me, the journey I've been on, if I thought for one day, 1 hour, 1 minute it wasn't happening, the lights off and I'm going back to who I was like. So I'm inside convinced we'll get the takeover. Okay, I know you can't say that, but I can't. I'm just a fan. And so if I was in the pub tomorrow, and some of my friends think I'm nuts. My best friend's a solicitor, and he said to me, he says, this is either the cleverest thing you've ever done or the stupidest. And more often than not, more days he tells us it's the stupidest thing I've ever done. If he's on here tonight, he's never been on a podcast in his life. And there'll be people on here that were saying to me, how do I get on? What do I do? Who's Steve Wraith? And I just start laughing, you know what I mean? Like, so will it happen? I'm sure it will. If it doesn't, I'm an idiot for doing what I've done. I've wasted money, I've wasted time, I've wasted effort, and I've upset people. And the people I've upset, I apologise to.
Okay, that's great. Next question. I mean, again, a lot of people asking the same questions, so just merge them into one before we go to the live chat. The challenges from the EPL and the legal teams. Can you go into that?
I can give you an opinion of I mean, what I don't mind sharing with you. On the 23rd of December, at 5:45 at night, Gordon and I got a letter from the EPL, and that wasn't an accident. You know, they say it is, and I said rubbish. They sent us a letter, a Christmas present, I'd say, off Masters and Hoffman to spoil our Christmases. Well, actually, it did the opposite because it just showed me we must be like a mosquito on steroids to these people. They must. Somebody once said to us, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping in a room naked with a mosquito. And we must be like a dozen mosquitoes in their room because we're just two fellas. We're just two Newcastle fans. And yes, we've got mountains of information of what you've done wrong. And yes, we think it'll all come out. And yes, I think it'll end up in a car crash. And I think the EPL will come off terribly bad. And I know you hate my guts and the feeling's mutual. And I know you think I'm a nuisance. And hey ho, you know, I'm a Newcastle fan. I think we've been badly treated. And I think you treat Newcastle different to what you treat your big six. However, we're not going away. And I'm not intimidated. And you don't frighten me. And I think when you keep writing these letters, I've now had 3 since Christmas Eve. So it's becoming a regular thing, isn't it? Because you write to me and I write back to you and you tell me what you're going to do and I say, we'll do it. And I'm sure you're going to come after us. But I told you in a letter that if you'd come after us, me and Gordon said the same to you, I'm sure the Newcastle fans will come at you. And I think if you, the only thing you've got more than me is money. And you've made a point to tell us that. You've got more money than me. Get over it. I've got enough. But the thing is, if the Premier League are going to come at fans, at football fans, for Dan speaking up, all we've done is spoke up and said, it's wrong what you're doing, then I feel sorry for you. Because you go around saying that football is nothing without fans, and then you tell them you don't have any standard, and you tell them they don't have any money. Tell them that they can't do this, that, the other. I say let's have a public case and see who wins because I think we'll smash it to bits.
I love it. I love the confidence, and that
I don't think. I'll say something to you all now. There's been I saw a letter this week of Richard Masters, which was written and it was published on Twitter, and you can imagine how quick I collected it. And it says in that letter that there's a big agreement made where everybody should keep this confidential. I'm sorry, I totally disagree with that statement. I think if you got behind your confidentiality and said to all the fans in Newcastle and the club and the buyer, the whole lot, and said who'd like it in the open, I think you'd be the only people voting for it to be kept private. I think that's how you won things. But when you put that in perspective, you've got the government dealing with one of their biggest allies in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, and you with what I'd call a tin pot ODT test, keeping it all private. So why can the government deal to the tune of billions of pounds? And why can Tottenham Hotspur sit at the table 2 months before Newcastle and be so confident of asking for 10 times what we're asking that they think they can get the deal through, but Newcastle can't. The people in Newcastle can't have the investment and they can't have this deal because you think that's right. But I'll say I think you've been coloured by Big Six, BI and others.
Lots of people asking about Richard Masters and Gary Hoffman, asking what are their motivations and their drivers. It ties in with our first question tonight from Mad Mark, who says, why are Masters and Hoffman and the Big Six clubs so afraid of you, Keith? Are they honestly fearful of your CMA case leading to the Premier League organisation, club directors being struck off and damages being awarded? But what's their motivations, do you think?
I think the thing that the EPL don't like about us and most of their lawyers, I would say that they work with some of the biggest, most professional lawyers in the country. And I would say that the one thing they're good at is slowing things down. So I would say they're the masters of procrastination. And if you said to me, what do I think the fear, what's my weakness in this case? I would say one is relegation and the other is PIF walking away. I think that's the things that would keep me awake at night. If you said there's going to be a court case on the X date of that month, I'd say, get the cans in. That's what I would say, because I believe that even what they know we've got now will win, but they don't know everything we've got, and they don't know what's coming over the hill. It isn't a Saudi on a camel on his own, trust us. So what I think that there's a bit of confusion in that question, because you asked me if the CMA, just like you know, the CMA, Competition Mergers Authority, I got grief off somebody for 5 weeks on Twitter. If you had any money, you'll be doing this. If you had any money. And it was quite aggressive that the guy said that basically I was a fraud because I hadn't been to the CMA. Probably the last time he saw a tenner would be a conker, but that's by and by the way. He turned around to me and said I hadn't been to the CMA. I'd already been there. I went to the CMA in August. I wrote to Richard Masters on the 5th of August and I went to the CMA on the 6th. And they just give us a load of tosh. And my QC told us that CMA should have investigated. And we could have gone back that route. So do I think they're frightened of me? Probably not. Are they frightened of Gordon? Should be, but not. You like that. I think they don't like the fact that football fans are allowed to have a voice. And football fans, like you three, are allowed to speak up to our fan base. And people would say, well, you would, but it is, I think it's more intelligent than other teams. I think Newcastle fans are knowledgeable. I think we've got an older fan base. It's probably on the sea. There's probably only me in my 30s, and then there's you three. Look at the age of you. So I think that them people will probably sit there and go, what's he going to come out with next? And all I'm doing is getting stuff that's in public domain and sticking it out there. And same with when I wrote to Boris, there was a lot of information went in there that fans didn't know about. So all I'm trying to do is, I can't answer the fans. I can't give them what they want. I can't sit and be a questions and answers man. I never purport to be a lawyer or be legally qualified. All I'm doing is trying to let fans see in my mind of how I think we've been wronged. And what I'm trying to do is show them different examples of where he is, to keep the fans together, to stop them scrapping amongst themselves, to stay united for a PCP consortium takeover, that's all. Now, to go back to your question, I don't think that EPL like the fact that the club that they've muted and the buy-in consortium who aren't involved in the scrap, because they've got to keep them to one side, have now got a voice, which is called fans. So I think that's the answer to the question.
No, good stuff. We are going to start taking some questions from people. Before I come to Liam's question, which is about, you taking legal action through CAT, well, I just want to ask about Twitter. We'll just go back to that. A lot of people are asking, a lot of people are making a comment saying, well, it's nice to see your face and but you blocked us on Twitter. Is that because you're just getting inundated? I mean, I've been through that. Been through that scenario, Keith. It's not nice. It detracts from you doing positive work if you end up in an argument. Is this as simple as that?
I tell you how simple it is. It's as simple as this is. Somebody else was doing the Twitter because I saw that somebody said, "Who wrote this?" And it certainly wasn't me. I mean, I've never ever said anything abusive to anybody, because what I got told from a company that advise on social media, they said, what you're better off doing is being just a body that releases information. And that's what we did when I first went on. I just released information. And I found by doing that, it was easy, because every time you had something to say, you put it on, then you went to bed. And then a couple of people said, there's a lot of people asking questions. You need to answer these questions. And I fell for the trap. And it was the stupidest thing I ever did, or one of them. The other one was Believing Peter, who said that if I give him a letter for Richard Masters, my name wouldn't be included in the action. But I went away and I started answering people on Twitter. And you get people on Twitter who say, I just want answers. And they get quite stroppy, and they don't realise that where do you think I got my answers from? I paid for them. And what I did was I stayed up late and I talked to people, and I talked to people like you three, and engage what I could get. And you don't have a divine right. And the other thing is, what does it cost to set the Twitter handle up? What if I'm talking to Richard Masters' brother? So every time you talk to me, or anytime anybody talks to us, if it's not pro takeover, I think, who is this really? And then I think to myself, what would I gain by engaging? And then what happens is, on a thread, you get people just banging the drum. And I think, do you know what it is? If I was in the pub, I wouldn't be drinking with him. Like, I wouldn't have a pint with him. He's not my type of bloke. And I know I'm not everybody else's. But then I would just probably back away, and I'd probably just, I just sort of say, I usually try and leave them. But if they're going on and on and on, and if it's getting insulting, I just take a leaf out of a couple of people's books and I just chop their legs and just think, it's not to be rude. And it's like, I don't know why you're on a pro PCP consortium takeover page, because you obviously don't want it. You think that, I mean, I'm not daft. I can go on somebody's Twitter and read down the thread and see where they say, I'm sick of people going on about this takeover. It's dead, accepted. Well, what's the point of me and him chatting? Because, we're going to be like, we're not going to get on.
No, definitely not. Big shout out to our sponsors for this month. They sponsor the StreamYard app, Old Coach House Distillery.co.uk, the world's first alcohol-free distillery, and it is Dry January. So visit the website, enter the code OCHD to claim your introductory 10% discount and get the most out of your mindful Dry January. No good whatsoever for Mitch at all, or Stu Penman. And also a big shout out to qtechshop.co.uk, of course, who are the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, who've been with us on this wonderful journey since the start of lockdown in 2020. God, did I ever think I was going to be saying that? And also the maker of t-shirts that we sell at newcastlelegends.com, those wonderful NUFC Matters t-shirts. And they also do the Supermac range as well. You can get your t-shirt or you can get your mug. Just jump on to newcastlelegends.com and jump onto the shop. Big thanks to the sponsors as always. Loads of questions coming in. I'll go to Zubair again. He's asked, oh no, I did say I was going to go. Sorry, Zubair, I will come back to yours. Liam Donaldson asked this one. You said you would take legal action through CAT. Now we have letters. Where is the legal case? That's from Liam Donaldson.
Yeah. Legal case is in a good place.
Okay, and please appreciate people watching.
Yeah,
Keith can only answer. Keith can only answer certain things in a certain way. We can't afford to have all of this hard work and effort that Keith's put in go through a trap door, because we are aware as well that will be people watching this who have an ulterior motive. So Keith, please don't feel pressurised. Answer whatever.
I mean, the lawyers have told me that they fully expect EPL to watch this, and the only thing I'll say to you is everything we've done and all the work we've done is in the right place. I don't mind sharing that with you, because it might help that last question, that when we wrote to the EPL, we were told that basically we had to queue behind the club. And if you remember in that letter that we sent, it actually said to me the clubs take a case themselves. And they used some word to do, case or action or whatever it was. And we were shocked. We did not know, as fans, we did not know that the club were taking an action. And when you've spent money on an action, and I'll hit on that one. One guy yacked on for 2 weeks on Twitter that it's 500 quid to do a letter before action. To do the letter before action is 500 quid. Might have been, when you got a bus tyre or something like that, you went down to the high street and got a £50 legal letter. you need to get in the real world. Is a competition QC, the level we're talking about, is £1,000 an hour. And they do a letter before actions, 50 hours. So I'm not going to do the sums, and I'm not going to tell you what people have and haven't paid. But I did tell you, the only people that's ever paid anything towards this action is Gordon Steen and Keith Patterson. And if we spend money, we don't have to tell anybody what we spend. Our family might think we're crackers. I don't think we'd really want our family knowing what we'd spend, to be truthful about it. But when you spend that money, you obviously build up a case. And however that case is used, you're obviously going to use it when you spend that kind of money to great effect. And what they said was, a cat, the reason you go to a cat, which is the first intention, is because a cat is about speed. And when you go to a cat, they can often limit the costs that fans could lose. Because they say to us, look, Keith Gordon, you haven't got the money of these multi-billionaires, so what we'll do is we'll give you a cat, we'll cap the cost for you. And usually a cat's quicker. But what they did is straight away they said, one, we don't have the money. Two, the only thing they didn't answer in the letter, which I don't mind sharing because I'm allowed to, is that they didn't answer any of the anti-competition things that we gave them. We said, you're guilty of that, and that. And they tried to answer one. And I remember talking to Robert, he said, that's a 2 out of 10 answer, that. I'd love to go to court on that point, what they've just answered. So, and all the other points, they didn't answer. So we know what we're doing. We know where the ducks are. They're all being lined up. And what you've got to do is be a little bit patient. But I'm sure somewhere, maybe tonight, we can go at the next stage of how it might start rolling down. But they are telling us that they will not expedite. They will not cooperate with us trying to get a quick case. And they're telling us also they're going to question how much money we've got. And that's a problem, because my bank manager wrote us last week and said, how about going back to the original arrangement where you bank with us? So if you think of that, you've got to sit there and think, well, we haven't got the kind of money that the Premier League's got. So, and we don't ask fans for any money. So what we're doing is we've tackled it and we're dealing with it, and it will come out. And I wish I was as certain sitting here that the takeover was going to happen, that the action's going to happen.
I'm only going to take one of Keith Gray's points here. One of his questions. We've got loads of questions to get through. We're not going to get through them all. He just says, what 3 things have you learned from this NCSL journey?
Never to believe a mate who tells you that if you take an action, they won't throw your name in the pot. Because I was in the background, never to be named. I didn't want any publicity. It's not who I am. You know what I mean? I don't tell people anything really. I just live a life and I enjoy it. What's the other thing I learned? Never to go on Twitter. It's just a mad world. It really is. You know what I mean? Like Steve Ray said one night, they mentioned me, put my head above the parapet, and he just started belly laughing because everyone who goes up gets shot at. Even if you were like Mother Teresa, you've got your crown on the wrong way around, and it's just vicious. It's just like, it's mad. But the one thing I'm going to do is say, is never underestimate it, because if I thought that this bloke from Durham was going to get 436,000 views of a tweet, I would have just died. In fact, I wouldn't have done it. You know, it's them spooky numbers to me. And if I put a tweet out, like a proper one, if I put a tweet out about some news, I get 300,000 plus on there, and it's scary. I get 100,000 if Deck puts a picture of the match on while they're doing the Castle thing. So you just think to yourself, it's just big numbers. But I can see where people make money from it, because obviously my background is being in business, commercial, at sea level, and I know what it means to get a business, grow a business, and improve things. And my background over the last few years as a consultant has been to do with customer journeys, customer experience. And when I look at this, and I look what Twitter can give you, and I look at how you can dial into people digitally, and how that more so in the lockdown, we all bored out of our schools, we can't go to the pub, can't go out, you can't do anything. So what do? You put this laptop on and you sit and look at people and you try and make sense of what's happening. And I think what I've learned is that the world of knocking on the door as a salesman is probably dead. There'll always be a need for a face-to-face meeting, but what you're doing now is the future. And I'm not too sure that I was ready for it. And I guess I wasn't ready for some criticism for just wanting to take over.
Plenty of that, mate. We do try to share it.
But the thing is, I saw all the rubbish, right? And I saw all the stuff going on about he's this, he's that, he's that. And I thought, well, maybe they are.
Have you been called bald yet?
I just been called your twin. So what happens is people turn around and they say to you like, oh well, Steve raced this and that Steve raced you and didn't tell me about. And every one of us has been capped off. So what I've realised now is actually I'm a target. So I'm horrible. But it's when you look at it, there's a big difference. And I've worked this out. I'm a bright lad, and I've got people who do this for a living to follow threads and follow through and check people out. And they said the big difference, Keith, is all your competitors, all the people who hate you, have an ulterior motive and an agenda. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, he's from that fanzine, he's from that, he writes that, and there's like writers and there's people who have podcasts, and I didn't even know what a podcast was. And then I've heard this thing called pylon. I thought on them things with electric that went across the roof, and they talk about a pylon. And when they say to me, oh, Keith Patterson's caused a pylon, I think, grow up. Honestly, a pylon. Like we all jump on and flatten the one on the bottom. I'll tell you something, honestly, it's just scary. So,
yeah.
So Keith Gray, that's what I've learned. I've learned like maybe to check it out a bit better, and not underestimate what you're going into, because I feel as though I'm carrying the hopes of too many fans on my back, and all I can say to you is I bloody believe in it, and I've put money and time into it, and it's took my life over, and I've lost things through it. But
you want to take some of them off your back, Keith, and stick a few on the zebra.
Well, I've got wrong for doing a zebra. I mean, a bloke turned around. Listen. If somebody told me what's a cult, I thought it was a load of weirdos in a minute get in a big gay field or something, and they all eat weird dinners, and they all do things, and all the family sleep together, and they all end up, you set them on fire or something. It's a crazy world. So then somebody does an article called Newcastle Cult, instead of Newcastle Consortium Supporters Limited, Newcastle Cult Supporters Limited. How sad. But you know what it is? You did it to try and upset us, and you need to understand. First of all, you think I'm a cult, I think you're a cult, but I'm not a good speller. But what I will say to you is, I'll say this, it's very important that you pick this up. It's the biggest compliment you could ever give us. Because I'm just a local lad that loves football. I worship my team. I love everything about being black and white. I get tears in my face. My 21st birthday was the day Keegan scored against QPR and the ball got sucked in. That was my 21st birthday. Like, I've got memories in Bilbao, Barcelona, Kiev, and all these places that you could never take away from us. It's my life, it's in my blood, I bleed it. And I'm just like all them 99.7% of fans that want it, but you 0.3 are my motivation, because you tell me that I get up your nose, because you get up mine and all, but I like the fact that you can't do anything with me. I don't have to listen to you.
In the words of the late great Windsor Davies, oh dear, how sad, never mind.
Yeah, but I just think if people want to call me a cult for saying, look, I'm a fan and I'm going to write a letter to Boris Johnson, and then they say, well, it's got a spelling mistake in it, I'd say, well, when you get yours done, send it to me, and I'll see if I can pick any spelling mistakes out of that. But why would you knock a fan who has a go? Why would you criticise somebody for getting off his backside and trying to make a difference?
Got to say, there's so much love coming for you on tonight's chat.
I haven't been feeling it like over the last few months.
Colin Turner says, everything you've done is appreciated. Keith, how are the lads? John O says, huge admiration, Keith, appreciate all you've done. Mark Bayer says, as a fan base, we are lucky to have somebody like Keith Brian Birchall says, top chat, lads. Keep up the good work. Lee Milne says, keep up the good work, Keith. Love Keith's passion for Newcastle, says Rafa Benitez is God. And My Key Y says, everyone has a right to an opinion, but how anyone can personally attack Keith and Co. for what they're trying to do for the club we all love is beyond me. Amazing work, Keith, and a massive, massive thank you. And Malcolm Taylor says, it's a credit to you for rising above the parapet to challenge the authority for the greater good of our club. Hashtag respect. Adam K says, right behind you, Keith, down in the Midlands. Messaged you our MP's response. Keep up the good work, Keith, says Tom Dixon. Great to have you on the show, Keith, says Zubair. Every Newcastle fan should be grateful to Keith if the takeover ever happens, or even if it doesn't. We can't thank you enough for all your hard work and effort. That's Wait there from Watling85. Great work, Keith. Keep it up, says Craig College. Top man, Keith, says Keith Longworth. Not one bit of criticism, mate. And listen, there's nearly 1,000 people watching. That tells you the whole Newcastle United fan base appreciates everything you're doing, mate. And all those late nights and the stress and everything, which, you know, inevitably gets on top of everybody when you're trying to do something with a positive. Keep up the good work, mate, because honestly, you're doing something remarkable. And when this takeover goes through, honestly, mate, they should build a statue of you, not anybody else. You know, I'd certainly chip in to pay for it, because if this goes through, mate, it'd be because of people like you. And, you know, I know for a fact that, you know, the likes of Manda Staveley, Dad, Jamie, I think they'll be the first people to buy you whatever your favourite tipple is, you know, once the takeover goes through. But, you know, that just shows you, mate, you've got the support.
Can't say anything to that.
No. Okay. Rafa Benitez is God saying, are you in contact with Amanda Staveley? Other people asking about Nick DeMarco. You know, these people, again, I know you've got to be careful what you say, but, you know, have you had contact with these people?
The answer is yes to everything. So I haven't left any stones unturned. And I made sure before we spent the time and took the toll of it all that we got great commitment, that there's a willing guy willing to sell it, which is, we always know, is Mike Ashley. So I didn't know Mike Ashley was up for this. And more than that, I wanted to know that Mike Ashley, like if Mike Ashley was going to do this deal with other buyers, that would cause us concern, because as the name says, we were only supporting one consortium. We were only supporting Amanda Staveley's consortium. So I wanted to know that it was real. And I got assurances that this is the only deal in town. And I want to say that because I'm sick of the stories. It's going on and on. Like blokes jumping on the back of some reports saying, is that bloke still doing the deal? I'm saying, they criticise people for misleading fans. Why make up somebody that the club haven't heard about? Because if you were going to buy this club tomorrow, you'd have to get in touch with the club to buy it. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah. You'd
have to do that. And the club don't know of this single buyer coming over the hill. So can we not just park that and or can we have a website called, you know, alternativeconsortiums.com, and you can all go on there and chat about your nerves and your anxieties about it not happening. But when it comes to this consortium, one of the checks I did was I wanted to know that they were there, I wanted to know they were real, and what I wanted to do was look into it. And because I'm not a politician and I don't talk about religion, I looked, there was various polls were carried out, and in those polls it said there was 97% of Newcastle fans wanted it. And when I spoke to people, I said, is that right, that figure? And they said, I think it's low. And they said, I'd like to know who the other 3% were. And to me, I think it's 99 point something %. And I think I'm a good gauge for that, because we've been putting it out and getting all the stuff back in. And I think that the best opportunity we could ever have in our lifetime is for a consortium that includes the people who brought it together, Amanda and Murdad, and the Rubens, who've done so much in Newcastle, like putting fortunes into food banks and turning the racetrack round. So for me, I think that they sound a brilliant British contingent to then the richest wealth fund in the world. And think about it. Think about what that means. So I'm a businessman. I've done okay. And I look at it, I just think they talk telephone numbers. People come to you, and I read an article, it was a good story. I read an article for Christmas, and I was reading down it, and it was from a guy who was a good writer, so I thought, I'll read this. And I read it, and it started off saying, if I get any of this wrong, please don't shoot us. I'm just going to give what I can remember of the story. It said, oh, by the way, we've got no contact with the buyers or the sellers. And I thought, right. And we're going to talk about the takeover. And I thought, well, that's not a good start, because I'm not just sure what you'd know about it. And then it said, if you want to not read it, don't read it. So I never. And then my mate phoned up, who's a solicitor, and he said, you read that article? And I goes, nah. He said, what for? I said, it's told us not to. What do you mean? He said, so it says don't read the article if you and he says, read it, because he says it goes on about Amanda Staley. So I went back and read it, and I thought it was vicious. You know, like, don't get us wrong, people have got different motivations, but I was reading an article about a woman who messed up at Liverpool. Well, the contacts I've got are really good, and that story I got was that Liverpool, it was the other way around. They put press out, but actually she walked away from Liverpool. And then the next story I got was she didn't do now for Manchester City. And again, the contacts I had, which are good contacts, top-end London contacts, said she was instrumental and she's very well thought of there. So I thought, well, that's not right and that's not right. And then the next one was the gem. She lost this deal. Think about how funny that is, because all the files and photos I've got, I can tell you who lost us the deal, and it wasn't Amanda Staveley. And you've got a woman who's capable of going to court, her and her husband, for a 1.5 billion case with Barclays, and she is guilty of only attracting the richest company in the world to come buy your club. And then you're going to criticise her. And then I thought, you know what it is, Amanda? Welcome to this club that we're in, that if you put your head above the parapet, you'll get shot off nutters. Because I just don't get it. I really don't. I don't get that people can sit there and criticise a woman who's put her money where her mouth is. Listen, people have said to me in the past, why don't you buy the club? I couldn't afford the 0.1, whatever. You don't realise. I've read things about fans are going to buy the club. I worked in Barcelona for a year with people who owned the club. Them fans is going to buy the club, honestly. Seriously. They're like, need a doctor. Because Mike Ashley's worth £3,000 million and he can't compete.
Yeah.
And so we've got this group of people, and what I think Amanda Staveley is guilty of is bringing probably the best consortium that we'll ever see in our lifetime to be interested in that unfashionable place up in the north, in Newcastle, where none of the players want to go to because it's a horrible place to live, blah, blah, blah. We know it's not, and we know how good it is, but that woman's brought us the best deal in town. And the reason, it's not Amanda Staveley, and I'd like to correct that article, the reason that the deal didn't happen is because collective lobbying from behind sports, of which you've seen letters, weasels like people like Richard Keys, who I've got to say, as a person, I just don't like him. That's my personal opinion. I don't like the way he goes on. I don't like the vicious, vitriolic, this tax on Newcastle and Rafa Benitez. It's petty. And then talk about morals. Really? Well, let's move on that one. And then I would say it's Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham. And then I would say, and others. And it could work out, because I'm sure at the end of this, Masters and Hoffman will be seeking me out and buying us a beer and taking us out. And when we do, maybe I might find out that they're nice lads and they might realise that I'm not as horrible as they think I am. But it's quite important to realise how weak they are with the big picture and the big six, and how much things changed when Hoffman. I've got a timeline when he happened and what changed in the press and what changed in presentations. And I would say to you that the only person who gets a not guilty on this is Amanda Staveley. And if I was murdered and somebody wrote that about my wife, I'd honestly, I'd rearrange your face, because I think it's awful.
Yeah, it's a bizarre situation, but Amanda's definitely not for turning. She's got her eyes firmly focused on the prize, and will be ready to swoop in. I think once the deal is ready to be restarted, if you like, and get back to business. But I think that's great. Zubair, I will come to your question now. The Nick DeMarco one we've already answered. Ben Jacobs mentioned that the Saudi and Qatar piracy issue is still somewhat off. Your thoughts on this and how significant that might be? That's Zubair's question.
Ben Jacobs. We call him Behind Jacobs, because he's like, I've heard he's an intelligent fella, and I've heard he's a decent reporter, but he doesn't want what I want. So I look at him like more with like a troll kind of feeling, because when he writes, I know it's not true. You know, he's put stuff in that just isn't right. Today, God bless him, he's put an article out to say good news for the takeover. There's a positive spin on it. Do you know what happens now? Ben Jacobs put on there's a positive spin. Then you three is going to get some more mates. That's what's going to happen. Because you three are the guys who like to shoot. But when it looks like the takeover might happen and Piffo getting that, you know, that big ship in the North Sea that they're going to sail down the Tyne, you'll not get all the new mates, and people say, oh, I better get hold of Mitch and make friends with him again because he's probably right. So you're laughing, Mitch, but it's right, isn't it? Is it right what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is, 100%.
It's absolutely right, Keith. Absolutely right, mate.
What happens in your world, Steve Hasty, when the takeover looks like? Well, I'll give you one. When the Qataris landed on the ground with the Saudi Arabians and they started hugging each other, and it looks like they're going to put all the things to one side. What happened to you three? I'm going to run this interview now. What happened to you three when the Qataris and the Saudis started kissing make up?
Well,
Yeah, go on. You go, Steve Hasty, and then Mitch.
The DMs started to fly for a start. The phone got clogged. The timeline just absolutely blew up, didn't it? You know, and then it was people saying things like, "You might be right. You might be right." And I think that the number of messages I got where people said, "I think there might be a compromise on the scene here, lads," which was the word that we've been using for God knows how long on this program. You know,
You coined that phrase, mate. You and I had a conversation about those lines months ago.
that's right. And people were telling us that there's going to be a compromise. Steve, I think you need to shake your head. There's going to be a compromise over in Middle East. And I think that compromise will get us to where we want to be. I messaged Mitch with just it was probably more than 5 letters, and it was just AAAGHH8. And I was like, it was like the scream that you could get out, and that was it. That's all I needed to say, because Mitch knew exactly where I was coming from.
Yeah.
Both of them were getting, piles of DMs, Twitter, Instagram as well. A couple of emails in my case too, wanting clarification on certain things, and it's really not surprising, but at the same time, it's a world we're kind of used to now because we've done it long enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what happens. It's what happens, though. It's what happens, isn't it? It's the nature of the beast, unfortunately. And look, I'm used to it. And we've all been attacked. We've all been hammered. But look, it means that you're doing something. You're never going to be able to please everybody, and that's just human nature. But and I keep saying, and this is a point I just really wanted Keith to take in, that social media is a small minority of our support. I hate to disillusion anybody who thinks that when they get a Twitter account and they get 3,000 followers, they don't run the Toon Army, they don't speak for the supporters. Nobody can ever speak for the fans. But what we can do is we can have our say to people who are interested in what we think. But when you see, and it's happened in numerous occasions, when you see fans organisations trying to organise a protest at St James's Park with 52,000 people in, and as Keith Patterson's quite rightly pointed out, the demographic of our support is actually quite old compared to most Premier League clubs, and a lot of these people aren't on social media. So when it comes to it and you have a walkout and there's only 500 people do it out of a 52,000 seater crowd, the reason is that most of these people aren't on social media, because you've still got to do what you were doing, Keith, for Save Our Seats, what you've been doing, and you've been doing, Mitch, for other things like United Supporters for Change, going back to the bloody 80s. You've got to do the groundwork. You've got to stand outside the ground. You've got to get people to sign petitions. You've got to hand leaflets out. I'm afraid you can't communicate with 52,000 people on Twitter. It doesn't work. It doesn't work on YouTube. You can have a great show like we have or other shows, but unfortunately, you're only reaching a minority of the fan base, and that's the same with Total Sport on Radio Newcastle. It's people have their own choices, what they listen to, what they go on to, what they read. They'll read what they want and do what they want. And our fan base has been, and this is something which is really starting to sink in, I think, with a lot of people. Our fan base over the last 13 years, and we've preached this, and I mean preached it, it's been a classic case of divide and conquer by Mike Ashley. He has split our fan base right down the middle. People who want him in because they think it's better the devil you know, and people who want him out because they don't like the way that he's running our football club. And he's played that like a true gambler. He split us down the middle from the funeral march onwards, and we've took it, we've accepted it. And the only time we've actually voted with our feet is when people have actually made their own minds up and they've gone, I'm not renewing my season ticket. I'm sick of watching this rubbish. Rafa's gone. Now we've got Steve Bruce. I've had enough. I'm off. And before COVID, we had 10,000 gaps in the stadium. And I tell you what, if Mike Ashley doesn't leave, right, we've got a major issue with this football club. Because I tell you, because of COVID, a lot of people who've lost their jobs won't be able to afford season tickets. There'll be bigger gaps in that stadium than there's ever been in the Premier League. Newcastle's got a big problem if this takeover doesn't go through. And those people who are anti-PIF takeover need to give their heads a shake, in my opinion.
Yeah, what I would say, Steve, as well, is that if you go back to the original Magpie group in the late 80s, where they had the support of the Evening Chronicle, and the Evening Chronicle had a reach right across the northeast, and that was vital for the way that Malcolm Dix and the rest of the guys, John Woff and the team, and then ultimately John Hall, got the message out. It was vital for them. Social media is totally different now, and the press are now at the situation where we have a situation where some of the press, some of the northeast press, actually report on social media. They report on what they read in social media. They don't report on what they know. They report on what they're reading in social media and taking that, and then other fans think it's gospel. We've got to get back to that real love of real stories, the truth, what's really, really happening out there, and we've got to dispel. It's very difficult. We've got to dispel the myth of where Newcastle United are and where we're heading. There was one question that's been bugging me, and it's raised, and I'm going to ask Keith, and I'm not here to normally ask Keith a question because that's not what he's here for. He's not here to ask to be primed by me. But Keith, when you hear somebody come out and say that Ashley's only in this game for the compensation, he's only in this legal thing, what went through your mind? Because I know what went through my mind.
It's an easy answer. You wouldn't. If you were just in for the compensation, I don't think you'd employ Nick DeMarco and Shai Fatima. They are people talk about money and people skilled and I don't mind sharing. I once was a managing director of a company that consumed 25 million in legal fees in a competition case. We had 16 barristers, but when you look at those two people and you look at the people that's publicly known to work with him, that's not a man who's trying to get money. That's a man who's trying to do a takeover. Yeah. And if I take any credit, out of this journey, it's since getting involved. I think there's a lot of rumours go out that the club and the buyers are on different sides, and there's a lot of animosity. I think they get on fabulously well. I think the buyers and sellers in this annoy the EPL and others because they are so together on this, and the club is doing the fighting and the club are funding that fight, and I think the buyers are massively connected to them, and I think that every time you hear anything, it's always positive about each other, and I think the buyers know that Mike Ashley's throwing the kitchen sink at this, and I think there's some surprises coming. I think that they're in a good place. I do.
We've had so much positivity. It's still flying in. Wow, Keith, I love your attitude. Let's fight the EPL, says Graham Shannon. Very, very impressed with the comments, says Terence Swift. George Boyle says, Keith's game is out. Scared of no Premier League bullies. I love it. Zubair, thanks for your question earlier. It's a serious passion from Keith, which is amazing to see. Ronnie Lillico, well done, Keith. Get this through, then you'll never buy a drink again. Stu Penman.
Whoa! I've heard he's never bought a drink before. People tell you that.
Stu Penman's got Keith's put himself across excellently. I can't wait for the fathom of my life work out why no Newcastle fan is 100% behind him what he's attempting to achieve. Mal Huddart says, brilliant Keith, can't understand how any Newcastle fan cannot be 100% behind you. Margex52 says, respect Keith. John Justice Allen from QTech says, listening to Keith is like listening to Sir Bobby talking about the club. I love it. What a bloke. So many positives, mate. Honestly, you can take that from this show 100%. I know you were really worried about some of the reactions, but there's been so many people coming out on with positive. It's literally just full of positive comments.
It's so
I do want to, round of applause for him by all means. Do want to say there's a lot of people on tonight. We knew we would be hitting new boundaries, over 1,000 people watching, which we really appreciate. If you're a first time visitor to the channel, please like the video just by clicking the thumb. Comment, by all means comment, say what you want to say. Please share it. If you click share, it just takes you to your Twitter page or your Facebook page. Doesn't take any of your details, just share it onto there. Most importantly, just click this little button on the right hand side, subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe to the channel, we do 7 shows a week. We have a lot of shows on each week. Something for everybody. We have Ladies Night, which is on a Monday with some very intelligent and well-briefed Newcastle United fans. We've got Samantha, we've got Katie, we've got Kendall, we've got Sav, and we've also got Alicia. So please get yourself on there on a Monday night. Tuesday night is probably one of our more popular shows as well. We've got Liam Kennedy from the Shields Gazette, who, as Keith's already mentioned, he does, he does like Liam and works a lot with him with the Shields Gazette. We've also got the guys on a Wednesday, Stu, Neil, Steve Wilkinson, Steve Hasty and George Mitchell to do the retro show. We look back at games gone by. We've got Supermac and Gibbo on a Thursday, looking ahead usually to the weekend's games. We have the Worldwide Squad who take you through Match Day Live as well. So well worth joining and just subscribing to the channel. Please do join the channel and come back and join us. You don't have to watch them all, but just come back and pick and choose. But Friday night, of course, is the one we do on a regular basis, and we tend to make it a dodgy flyer, thanks to John from Jab. And this week's was based on Fury. Not quite sure about what my head's doing. I think Steve Hasty and Mitch got the better deal there. And big thanks to John.
For once, mate.
For once, yeah. Big thanks to John from Jab on that. Okay, look, the first hour has been dedicated to Keith. We did promise him that we would try and talk a little bit of football today. And we want to talk, obviously, about the transfer window. Rolando Aarons, Keith, he's gone. Newcastle have actually, and I only picked this up a little bit earlier from Liam Kennedy's paper, the Shields Gazette. We've actually signed a young Sunderland midfielder today, Jay Turner-Cook. So somebody else making that jump from Wearside to Tyneside, following in the footsteps of Bracewell and Bobby Moncur and people like that. But yeah, what's your hopes for the transfer window, Keith?
I would like them to get a ball-playing midfielder in there. I think it's when I look at the team, I personally, I think Shelby's legs are not what's needed in there now, and I think when you look at the way Rafa had Matty playing and Sean Longstaff playing, he looks a different player now. But in the middle of the park, we just don't seem to compete with the better sides. And personally, I would like them to buy a middle midfield player that can win a ball, spray, somebody can make it all happen, like an engine room, somebody that can create. A Brian Robson, a Robert Lee, those kind of footballers that were like key players in the middle. Even a Kabay kind of player, somebody you can just hang your hat on. So I think that's missing. I worry if Wilson got injured, because he is to me the best hope we've got of avoiding relegation. I sometimes look for simple things like if we put Rondon in there, which I've got a lot of time for, say at 10 million, you think yourself, him and Wilson will keep us up. We could attack differently, but I don't think that'll happen. I'm sure that's not going to happen. So I don't know. I worry that Newcastle as a team, we've got to stay up. We've got to stay up so we can do this takeover. I just worry that too many players. If you said to me who's the best player you think you got at the club, I still think it's St Maxim. I think he's great, and I love Wilson, but I just think we don't gel, click, fight, track back. We don't rattle people, and it worries us. You know, it worries us that we can't beat with a full side a reserve Brentford side. That's why I'm worried.
Yeah, quick one on the again, we're always going to come back to this because you're on. Keith, can you comment on what the impact is on the recent treaty between Qatar and Saudi may have on the takeover? It's positive, isn't it? Peace out there can help this massively.
Depends whose article you're reading. If you read some articles, I read 2 last night, that makes no impact, it's not positive. And I just think, how could Qatar and Saudi end in a 3-year war? How can that not be positive? So I think it is very positive. Like you three, I knew that was coming off. I knew, a while before that was going to happen. So we all were waiting for it to happen. And yeah, we make our calls and say, is that going to create the impact? But what we're getting told is that it is a very positive thing. And even Ben Jacobs today is saying that there's some positive signs coming out toward the takeover. So I think the 3 of us should expect a call of him because we'll have to do some unblocking, I guess, if Ben Jacobs is never seeing the deal going through. So I just don't think it'll be anything but positive. But I think the team at the club have enough without that to win this legally. I think that takes away another layer of objections. So I think behind playing ball and then getting, say, publications of their, if they can sell their media into Saudi Arabia, there's 45 million people in Saudi. And without those people being allowed to use the behind deal, that $500 million deal is worthless. So the deal isn't worth 500 million and commercially it doesn't stack up. So they might have signed a deal for $500 million, but I don't think they'll pay it if they can't publicise into Saudi Arabia. So I think it's all positive. I think that and a lot of other things, and I think everything's starting to go our way.
Lots of people asking about a timeline, Keith. Is there a timeline to this kind of thing? I mean, is it a case of how long is a piece of string? Aaron Hunter saying, do you think we'll have new owners, Keith, by the end of the season?
Yes. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, my brother always asks us that question. And I should shout out to him. My brother if he comes on today, he's called Michael Daleside, and he has a pub. And he'll say to me, you never ever tell us. And I say, because you don't like to tell people what you think in case you let people down. So you can get accused of this. A lot of people say they're misleading the fans. But if you're asking me as a fan, just my personal opinion, I think realistically it could be done by March.
Okay, well that's positive. But I mean, don't ever put dates on it. That's what I learned very early in this takeover.
But you're just saying I'm just a fan. I mean, yeah. I think it'll kick off this month. I think Christmas come too early, and I think it'll all kick off this month. I think it'll start jollying up now. Yeah. And I think what will happen is there'll be some surprises, and I think there'll be some kicks, and I just. The only thing I'd say is I'd much rather be on our side than theirs. That's my opinion.
A lot of people asking about arbitration, Keith. Is there a timeline on arbitration?
I think it'll start this month.
Right. Okay, that's it. Simple answer to a simple question. Lots of people again. Life goals. Thank you for what you're doing, Keith. You're a local treasure. Brian Crute says, fully support Keith's attempt to get this deal done. Vast majority want it. Ven XMN says, Keith, they'll put you up front when the takeover goes through. You're a legend. Cheers for the work, Keith. Keep the fight going. You've done more than many have or even thought of, says Jamie Robinson. Exotics at home. Top man, Keith, even if it doesn't come off, you have stood up for the club. Brian H just says, after watching the show tonight, he's going to sleep well. David Hargrave says, I hope our new owners give you your own box, Keith. You deserve it. If there's an NUFC supporter doesn't want this takeover, they haven't got the passion or drive, says Jamie Robinson. And Mike Gent says, when this takeover goes through, there is going to be a lot of Hollywood studios who will make this story into a mega movie. Jason Statham to play you, Keith. Well, I could play Keith, I think. Don't talk me out of a part, however, man.
FNA Films have got the exclusive on this one, I tell you.
You know,
I bet.
it's funny.
I bet.
Mark Douglas said that to me one day. He says, "Well, the right to own this." But I can tell you, Liam Kennedy is writing a book at the minute. He's writing a book, so he wants to come down and see us when the lockdown's finished. But you know, on the deal, it's somebody said something there, just resonates with me. I just think to myself, bang on, mate, bang on. So if I was in the pub and somebody said what the bloke just said on there, I'd move over with my glass and stand talking to him. And he said, how can any Newcastle United fan not want this deal? It's just a simple question. So if you get up in the morning and you're going to write an article, you're going to write it on, not kidding people on, you're going to write an article on, this is what I want. And this fella here is not saying, Gordon Stein's never gone online and said to anybody, oh, well, I'll tell you what, it's going to happen on that date. Nobody's saying that. We're just saying we all want it to happen and we want it to happen with these people. We like this group of people. And we think if we get them, oh, yeah, we're not going to win the cup next year, but we'll start building. And the one thing that Newcastle fans want is to compete. Do you know when people set the side up? I remember watching Rafa's side play Man City one day, and we didn't have the right to do what we did. Yeah. But he had ordinary players chewing the life out of them, and the whole ground got up. And the day when, for example, when young Matty scored against Man United, it's like you look at that, you just the hairs stand. Well, hairs don't stand up for me and you, Steve, but stand up for you though at the bottom. But it's that thing that makes you. It's like a drug, and it makes you not be able to do anything but keep wanting more. And the bloke said there just a few minutes ago, he said, how could any Newcastle fan not want it? And, you know, I used to go and have a season ticket in the Lasers when it was only about 10 foot wide. I can remember when they pulled the stand down and it was just a bit of concrete. I had a season ticket in there for, seemed like years, under our dealers. And a cracking footballer, but you know what I mean? What a manager. You know what I mean? And like, I used to have a beer with Paul Sweeney when he come down. You know what I mean? And like
top man, Paul.
And like, you know, I used to go on the town with him and Rochi and have the crack. But them days we had some terrible, like, we just didn't win things and we didn't come close. And then when you've had the Keegan days, and when you've had, like, you know, and you've seen McDonald break away at Burnley and Colin Waldron jump on his back, and you just think, he plays for us. And you just look at it and think, I want it again. But what I want kids around the world to wear them black and white tops. You know, when you go to Spain and you walk in and it's got Messi on a Barcelona top, well, why is it never a Newcastle top? Why is it like, you know, like Givarch on a Newcastle top? No wonder they don't sell. But then when you look at people like Neil Mitchell's dad, I mean, I'd love to know what he thinks about this consortium, because to me, he's a voice, and he's people we should listen to. So we know we're getting on in years, but you look at that fella. What does he think? Having watched people like Milburn and these people, what does he think about the consortium? What does he think about the match to getting Saudi money into Newcastle? What's your dad think, Neil?
My dad's well versed in, you know, bringing outside investment into the region, the stuff he's done with the university, and he sees the advantages. That's a two-way street advantage in many ways of money coming in from Saudi into the region, because it's not just the club that will benefit from it. The region as an entirety will benefit from it.
Does he get the consortium? Does he believe?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
That's what I was.
And as you might guess, he's one of the first people I would go to bounce something off.
Yeah. Through
everything we've done, you know, if there's something I want a straight opinion on, it's between him and Mr. Hasty about who I'll get the straightest opinion of.
Brilliant.
You know, and he's given strong advice to me throughout all sorts of projects, from, you know, some of the supporters stuff from the supporters trust all the way along the line, you know, and it's something he's entirely behind. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I know that. I've spoken about it often enough.
See, when you look at him, and you think to yourself, how long is it since Mitch's dad has looked at the Newcastle team and thought we've got a chance and we're going to compete or we could win this? And we talked about this week about playing Arsenal. And if we can't beat Brentford in the Cup, Brentford reserves in the Cup, with a full strength side out, then what chance have we got of beating Arsenal? So then my brain's saying, well, I'd rather win on Tuesday. And they might say, well, it's because he's an old bloke. But it's not. It's because I think that Tuesday's more important to this takeover. And I think that relegation's more of a concern to me. I don't think, with the team we've got and the way they're set up and the way they're playing for each other, I don't think we could win a cup. I think it's just pipe dream. We should have beat Brentford if we had. We'd have got beat the next game because we're just not that level. You know, you can't look at them and think, oh, they're going to win this. You just think, God Almighty. And you look at games like Spurs and Wolves and Liverpool, and you think, how do we get a point out of that? So when I look at your dad and them, Neil, I think to myself, they must have seen great teams, but when I watched them in the 80s and 70s and 80s and 90s, you always had a chance. You always thought Newcastle could outscore somebody. And Keegan just epitomised that. You know, Keegan's whole setup, he's always been my hero, you know, always was, always will be. Met him loads of times, and I just think he's just a diamond of a bloke. And I have a snooker room just littered with all of his photographs and things he's signed for us. And I just think of people like, I think of kids who people like us stick shirts on. They don't get a choice, like I never. And you stick a shirt on them, and you say, go on, wear that top. And I think, what we're doing, are we not just giving them 50-year misery? Like, you know, because it's a difficult team to support, and we've been battered. But I look now, and I think we've got like 24% possession and 31% possession. And I think if people like your dad, I would like to see that a lot of older fans, I'd like to see them genuinely win something properly by having a good side where they go on the ground and say, we can win this, like. We've got a better team than them. And I would like the kids that get them shirts stuck on them by people like us to
Keith, there's Keith's snooker room.
I got a bit carried away when I went across the ceiling with all that anti-Macam stuff.
I heard, you know, I heard he was going to change the red balls on that snooker table to black balls, but I'm not sure.
Brilliant. Let's get back to a few questions. Keith on Twitter, Alan says, Keith, on Twitter, there are people saying Mike Ashley's only taking the Premier League to court for compensation. What's Keith's view on this?
So I don't agree with it. I absolutely don't think it's right. I think he's put a team in the bat to win a action. I think he will win the action, and there's things I'll say later in the month where about the route. So I think there's a lot of things queued up, ready, and I think that the club and the fans are on the right side of a victory.
Yep, good stuff, Graham Shannon. Thanks for subscribing. He's said he subscribed. Lona says, from someone who's known Keith for years, his commitment is second to none, and if there's a chance, he will see it through. Keep fighting, mate. Great stuff. Malcolm Taylor says, you can see clearly how emotionally passionate Keith is. I for one hope that you are doing okay health-wise, because he's definitely taken a lot of flack. Take care, buddy. Hashtag 9Talk, good to have you on. He says, well done, Keith, and to all at NCSL. Keep it up, fella. And he also tells everyone to hit the like button. Thank you very much. Todd Cantwell just talking about transfers. Would be a good option. It wouldn't break the bank, says Craig Ferguson. Paul Oxley says, I think we'll have to wait for the takeover before we get that type of midfielder, Keith, as those players are big money. Just talking about your comments about who you would take. Jack Wilshere, just a quick one for all of you. Would anybody take Jack Wilshere? I think we've had this on the show before. I personally wouldn't, even on a pay-per-play contract. Keith, would you take him?
I would. I'd take him because he'd have something to prove, and I've lost faith in Shelby.
Fair enough. Steve Hasty?
Not if what I hear about his lifestyle's true, but if Jack Wilshere is the sort of player that could change Newcastle by changing himself, then perhaps. What I would say is that what Keith said about our midfield is quite true. And I think that if there's anything that Keith said, it comes from the top. We have ability, but mentally, we're not strong enough. We're not a strong enough club mentally, and that comes from the top. I don't think we're mentally strong right in the boardroom all the way through, and that pervades all the way through, and that impacts on the supporters as well. And if you've got if you think it's a John, and you think of what went on, and after the Magpie group, he had this ability to convince us that we were a super team, that we were a super club. And when that pervades through, we all start to believe. And when Newcastle fans start to believe, things happen.
Yeah.
And that's when you've got a leadership on the pitch, in the boardroom, you've got a Keegan-esque type of guy, a Benitez type of guy. We all start to believe. And isn't that fantastic for Newcastle United when we all start to believe, when we're all and I hate that phrase. When we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, if you know what I mean. It's just the excitement of suddenly returns, and that walk up from the Strawberry up into St James's Park, or from the food bank, as Bill and Colin and myself and Stuart and Monge are doing at the moment. When we get the opportunity, that walk up is that when you enter that ground, that little buzz that comes up through the back of your neck and the hairs stand up. And I know you guys haven't got much hair, but I've got plenty. And it all stands up, I can guarantee. And it's just that even when I sit with George, and we're in the 1892, and then when we walk through into the stadium itself, that buzz you get, is there a Newcastle fan that doesn't feel that buzz? And okay, it's wrecked the minute the game starts, but that's not the point. We still get that buzz. We still get that buzz for 3 o'clock kickoff or whatever time, don't we? Every Newcastle fan gets that buzz, and it's getting that excitement onto the pitch, getting that excitement through the fans, getting that excitement through the management, and getting that excitement through the boardroom. If we can get all of that working together, Newcastle United are a force like we will never. The people will, and that's why everything that keeps going through. That's why the Premier League and the Big Six are absolutely cacking themselves, because they know what it means, and this is the big opportunity and they're desperate to stop it. And people like Keith are making it happen for us, and are keeping that passion going and keeping it alive for us. And Mitch is laughing, but he knows exactly what I mean. He knows exactly what I mean.
Yeah, Mitch, Jack Wilshere.
Personally, I wouldn't. He was over here a couple of weeks ago, and I got one of the media lads over here to ask him, would he be interested in Newcastle United? And apparently he said, in a heartbeat, which is interesting.
That's why I did.
And to answer Josh's question before, I'm in Goodfellas.
Josh, my new Twitter friend. We have buried the hatchet after all of that carry on. I haven't quite followed him yet, but we'll wait and see what pictures he comes up with. But I hope he enjoyed the Adam Pearson chat. Well, that's all buried now, and we'll move on. It's a new year.
I saw a question as well before about being broadcasting in Saudi. This is an interesting one. You couldn't get the access to the website from Saudi. But you could still pick the satellite signal up, and if you had an active box with an active card, you could still watch it. And if you had a problem with your signal, if you rang the other country's number on their website, you would still be able to get help with it. The difference this last couple of weeks is the Saudi flag has appeared back on the beIN website in the contacts pages alongside a dedicated number for Saudi. And that's in the last sort of week. So it's the kind of things like that have just given the hint that something was coming.
Stephen Adams says we should change this to the 4 Amigos. Keith should become a regular member. I think he's had enough. I think he's had enough of all of this. He just wants to go back, as he said, to being
I hope there's a sweat run down my leg.
Brian says, Keith, the arbitration case, is it a case of separating PIF and Saudi, and surely the Middle East agreement would resolve that issue?
Again, I don't think the EPL know fully what's coming at them, and I don't think the club will know what the EPL's real, genuine bullets and objections are. I think at the moment, if it had been one of the big six, I think this deal would have been passed. I think it's quite obvious. I think the fact that the big six sat at the table with the Saudis, it signifies that they were confident of doing a deal. But if the EPL, if you said to me, what do I think? I believe that the EPL got together, and I think there's three main players in there, and I think it'll be, people who's well known in the roles, what roles they had. Everybody knows what Masters and Hoffman and McCormick on the legal stuff. According to people I've spoken to before I ever wrote the Masters, they told us that it probably was going to get knocked out. And I think that the EPL came up with something that the consortium couldn't do. So I think they said, what could we do to make this not go through? And I think that card was played by, let's tell them that we want the Saudi royal family as directors. And that is on separation. It's the same argument what Steve Race just said. It is a separation issue. How do you show the different? But it's a common known fact that the PIF lawyers could have proven that, but weren't given the opportunity to do that. I think this next time round, them lawyers will be key. It's in football circles. What you've got to understand is the people on the side that stop this, they talk as well. And in football circles, it's commonly spoke about that when they were trying to put the deal together, all they were trying to come up with was reasons that they couldn't comply with. I think the next time round, I think the club know exactly how to handle that. I don't think Shahid Fatima is a mistake or a fluke, but she's probably got more Middle Eastern experience and skill in that factor than the EPL have ever thought about. I understand the EPL have never taken legal action or legal advice. They've never gone and sought advice in Saudi. So I don't think they understand Saudi law. And the only person or the only people that could ever prove that the Saudis are separate are the Saudis, because they can explain what their laws of their country is and how you separate things off. But if you don't get heard or don't get a voice or don't get a set of ears, then probably you couldn't. So I think it will be fought on those terms. But I've got other concerns as well. I've got, we've researched the life out of this, and when you look at Crystal Palace, we turned up those rocks, and basically Crystal Palace, 78% of it was in a Delaware company. And a Delaware company is a US model. It's legitimate, but what it does, it stops you having to name the directors of a company. So for argument's sake, if Steve Wraith was going to buy a direct competition to NUFC Matters and open another site tomorrow, and he didn't want you to know that, because you might think, well, why has he got money in that? Why is he not focused on this? He could open it in a Delaware company. You wouldn't know Steve Wraith owned it. And football clubs allowed to do that. So when you ask about, you think of the times when you go back to when Crystal Palace sold out, 78% of that is non-named. And they can't account, or certainly the fact of the records we've got. And by God, Gordon knows his way around a box, getting hold of documents. And he stayed up. He worked late, worked at the night, looking at documents. I drove down the road one day. I said, I wonder what happened to Man City. And we went in and we found all kinds out. We found all kinds out of Wolves. Look at Burnley today. It looks like Burnley. It looks like, if Burnley get bought out, those four might buy it by the sound of things, because it sounds like you don't have to have now to buy it. But how did Burnley get through? Because the ODT is supposed to be a test, in Richard Masters' words, to protect the company. He said that the ODT was to protect Newcastle United. Is that right or wrong?
Yeah.
Masters has said
right.
that. So tell me what he did with Burnley. Tell me how he protected Burnley FC, because I've been told a huge percentage is of a loan. There's not a lot of their own money's gone into it. Some of the money from Burnley owners apparently went into it. The whole thing stinks. But I think there's stench in various takeovers. I just think that the one that was scrutinised to death is Newcastle's because of who it was. And the big six know that when the fans-led review takes effect, it'll probably be a big five that qualifies the European Super League. And they certainly don't want it to be the big seven. So if it's going to be five and Arsenal today had dropped out, then you've got to ask yourself, will the other five that go through really want Newcastle compete with PIF money? And I think they don't. So what will they fight on? Separation, I think. Can it be won? Without a doubt.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the Burnley takeover is not a threat to the big six, and that's the bottom line, and that's why it's been pushed through quite quickly and without
it's
any.
The Sunderland model. He's put 15 million in of his own money, and the rest is leveraged in numerous different ways, including, as Keith rightly says, some money from inside Burnley itself. And that they're also leveraging against future Premier League money. Well, that's what Leeds did when they got themselves into problems. They'd leveraged against future Champions League and season ticket money. Where does that end? It ends in tears.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and the other point to that, Neil, as well is that somebody said, well, why are the Premier League not bothered about it? Well, they're not bothered about it because when it all does turn to a mess, when the whole thing turns to, and I'll use that word SHIT, when it does turn to that, then Burnley will be out the Premier League anyway, and it'll not be the Premier League's problem. That's the key. Premier League at the moment are not interested. They're not interested. They'll let that go because when it hits the fan, if Burnley get relegated, because it's only staying in the Premier League that's going to keep a deal like that going. When they get relegated, then it's no longer the Premier League's problem. It's the EFL's problem. And Burnley end up like a Wigan, for example, just to use that as an example, or a Bolton, because that's where it'll head. Because the Premier League will just wash their hands of it.
Yeah, the end in tears.
Yeah.
And you know, interesting point Keith made before about Delaware companies. I've got a patient who's become a good friend, a Canadian lawyer at the IFC, who's a mergers and acquisitions lawyer. And I was describing the Palace situation to him, and without batting an eye, he says, the Delaware company, we have tons of bother with them.
Yeah.
And it's a nonsense that you can buy a Premier League football club with a Delaware company whereby you don't have to declare who actually owns it.
Yeah.
It could be owned by Paul Pot.
Yeah, it's absolutely ludicrous and makes more of a farce of ours, and it gives more ammunition. Kev H asks a question for you, Keith. He says, are you confident PIF will step back in with the bid when the time is right? Great work, by the way. He's got my full support.
The answer to that simple is I think if we do it within the time scale I hope it's done, then the answer is definitely yes. I was likened to me this week as being a ship parked in the North Sea, and Piff, the Rubens, and Amanda and Murdad are on that, PCP are on that ship. And as soon as Mike Ashley does this deal, they fire it up and it sails down the Tyne. And I think Piff have, if they were walking away off, they'd walked away. By God, we'd have known it by now, because I think everybody would have walked away. But it is a concern, so as is relegation. But I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to do it in time. And I think the next 3 months are critical.
John from Q-Tech, our sponsor, says Keith's table needs updating. Of course, that's what he does. So I might put you in touch. He'd probably do your freebie.
On, mate, because Steve said you were likely to do it free of charge, and I couldn't stop you, mate. If you want to come in and do that free of charge and paint the legs black and white, crack on, mate, and I wouldn't obstruct you.
Yeah, just touching on what you said there, Keith, about PIF, and I mean, I've mentioned this many times before, and people say, why are you so confident, Steve? Why do you keep saying 100%? Why have you always been positive? It's because, I read and I speak and I listen, and, ultimately I know that PIF will come back to the table. Yes, they have gone. Yeah, they walked away from the table, but they are still willing to come back to the table, once all of this mess is sorted out. It's a very proud nation. Mitch has said that time and time again, and they don't want the humiliation. And why should they be humiliated by a couple of knackers? standing in their way at an organisation which can't really perform to the best of their ability. Most of the time, the Premier League's let us down massively. They really, really have, and it's very disappointing to see. They should have just let this go through. They've caused themselves a huge headache. They didn't bank on the fans standing up, and somebody like Keith coming across the hill on a zebra, and taking the mighty Premier League on, and that's the bottom line. So yes, PIF are still there. They will come back. I will say that without any worries at all. And I'm still confident they will come back and they will still take over our football club. I've always said it. Me and Liam have talked about this on the show before. I think I've had maybe half a day where I was gutted down and really felt, oh, is that it? But after speaking to people, I was assured, no, that's not it. But it's a long haul. This is get ready for the long haul here, and that's where we're at. And Keith stood up and has counted, and for me, that's been a massive help towards the cause, and I think we'll get the takeover we want. But all the comments coming in again, Keith, you're a credit to all Newcastle fans. Thanks and good luck from Paul Wanderless. Lots of people just saying that they're feeling that they're getting a buzz off this, really because of what you're saying, Keith, and that's good. More questions. Zubair says, does Keith know if Ashley will take action to preserve our Premier League status and avoid relegation? I'm guessing he's saying, do you think Ashley will spend money in the transfer window?
It's quite a simple answer to that. It's because when I first started to do this, I realised that there's never been a route to speak to the club, but I'm a supporter and I'm one of their supporters, so it's obvious. It's an obvious route that somebody could make, but it's an unusual one, because if anybody chose which side they want or the fence they want to get on, everyone would say, "Oh, get onto with the buyers, because if they buy the club, then I'm in the right place." But I realised very early on that we need to establish whether they're up for this, and I'm extremely confident that they're not just up for it, that they're going to win it, and I also have a lot of confidence in the past when I've looked at it and thought this isn't going to happen, that's not going to happen. No, I've always maybe expect the worst. I now have a view that these lot didn't get the money by getting it given. They're very astute business people. They know what's at stake here. They know that this deal of, say, 350 million won't come again in a COVID crisis. And this is the best deal in town. I think I know that people have offered them more money than that, but they couldn't get the money together. So they feel for their club, for their investment, this is the best deal they're going to get. And they're aware what relegation would do for it. It's very, very important you do that, because people come on to tell us, they tell me, they say, do you realise it? Yeah, of course I do, but so do they. They realise the damage. And somebody just put on the screen a while ago and said, they said there's a mate of mine, Stephen Kyle, on the screen. You've got to keep that on. So the guy turned around and said, do you think that, oh, I forgot, Kyle Oates just knocked me out there. Like, he asked something about, I think I've lost it. Something about the takeover, about I've lost it. That lad there is on the screen. I'm going to have to go on to him. He's a Mackham. And his son's on Newcastle's books. And his son's one of the best kids in our region, just a great player. And Newcastle signed him up. And he's praying the takeover comes through so that his kid can get the investment that this consortium can give. And his kid's a world beater. And, he might be the future in Newcastle.
Andy Jowett also asked, how's your chipping coming on, Keith?
Oh, I've got the yips, Joe. It's getting personal now, because I've had Lorna on Joe, I've had them all on. So, I was trying to get a point over the phone when I was talking about, somebody put some on the screen earlier, and it was about Mike Ashley. That's it, that's the point. Would it not be easy getting this through, going to the Championship? It was a good question, that, and I saw it, and it got me brain racing. Sorry about that for messing the show up a bit.
Don't worry, you haven't, don't worry.
But what happened was, if we go into Championship, yes, it will be easy to go through, as proven with other clubs, but it won't be with PIF. Piff aren't buying. This consortium isn't buying a championship side. So it's critical that we keep them up. And it's important that you recognise that you don't make £3,000 million by not knowing where the risk is. And everything he does, and every business he's got, like him, love him, hate him, he knows what the stakes are.
Yeah.
Ended.
Yeah.
It took us a long time to get there.
No, but listen, it's the emotion as well. You know, you've been through this journey more or less alone with Gordon. You've reached out. You know Steve, etc. We've become in contact, and it's been a hell of a journey, mate. It's no wonder you're showing a bit of emotion. That just makes you human. Please subscribe to the channel if you're a first-time viewer. Share this particular podcast. I think there's a lot of Newcastle fans will want to see it. There's a lot of positivity tonight, which is great. Give it a thumbs up if that's all you want to do. If you want to make a donation, click the dollar button underneath it. That goes towards putting the shows together, which is good for us. Don't forget as well, we do a lot of work for the food bank. I had it confirmed by John today. We've so far raised on our t-shirts £1,640 for the t-shirts. So get on me Twitter at Steve Wraith. The latest one is the Malcolm NUFC Matters one. Who Let the Dogs Out t-shirt. It's a one-off. Malcolm kindly pushed it on Twitter today as well. Internet problems on the back. I think the current bid stands at £100 for that. The bidding on that finishes on Monday night's Lady Night show. So please give it a look, give it a retweet, and that'll be fantastic for us, because obviously we would love to hit £2,000 before the end of January on the t-shirts. That would be absolutely fantastic, and that's really good, especially with Malcolm pushing it. Nice little t-shirt, and thanks to QTech for that. Craig Ferguson asks, could PIF not open a shadow company in Delaware to upset the Premier League and get around this, Keith?
If I was a member of PIF, they would. I'll tell you. I'll do whatever I could do to get this through, to have me day with what I think is a badly run English football society. I would do. I'm just a fan, and I'm just disillusioned. If this doesn't go through, I think I'll stop watching football. That's how I feel.
Okay, Gary Jackman says, Keith, you're an absolute hero in what you've done. I hope that we all see a takeover. I think the Premier League saw our takeover as a threat and prevented it, and Burnley wasn't as such a threat. Steve Esquinane says, Keith, you're a top man, great guest. Steve, thank you. Paul Gibson says, get the rat traps out with the two chunks that is Ashley and Bruce. Anyone watching this has got to feel optimistic, says Barry Hogan. And David, he says, I've come in from work tired and a bit down from the whole current situation going on. I'm now genuinely excited again. Thank you, Keith. And well done, Keith. You're putting tears in every Geordie's eyes. Every Geordie will sleep well tonight, says George McVeigh, one of our regular viewers. And I woke up earlier in a mood and thought Maradona, Jockey Wilson and Ian Dowie were leading us up into the Champions League final, says Paul Gibson. No wonder you were in a mood. Thanks for all your hard work, Keith. We're all backing you both, says Colour Coach 1. El Nobo, he says, watching this late, but Keith seems a stand-up guy and he deserves lifetime on his seat. St James's for his efforts, regardless of the outcome. Thanks for your efforts. Malky Taylor, again, he says, if the takeover takes place, do you think the ground will be increased capacity-wise, or do you think a new ground would be consideration? Keith?
I think it'll be increased. I've seen the drawings for it to be turned round. I've seen the Leeds Park things, but I can't imagine. I mean, we've filled it to the rafters now, and that's what's upsetting when people say, you get these idiots. I didn't realise actually about 3 months ago that when the Robbie Savages of the world and Mark Lawrence's, when they put rubbish on the telly and say that we've all got it wrong and we expect too much, I didn't realise that the way they get us back on the TV is by the number of criticisms they get as well. It's whether if you get likes or you get dislikes, apparently that it adds the same number. And I didn't realise that if you go on television as a pundit, what you've got to do is say something controversial because it gets you back on. And they're all looking for a wage. I didn't know that. I feel a bit stupid really for not knowing it. But so I think myself. I think this whole thing for Newcastle's. I'm losing it. I'm sat here now. I'm worried. I'm absolutely worried. I'm like, there's other thoughts going through my head now as to how many people need this takeover to happen, and I'm worried that I'm carrying all.
You're not carrying it on your own, and I
know,
think
but the things you're writing on the bottom it's like
the comments now though from people are very positive, and a lot of people are saying even if it doesn't go through, Keith, you've done your bit. You know, like a lot of people just think, you know, fair play to you, you know, and you know, like Gary Jackman says you should have a place on the board if we're hopefully taking over to represent us because we are definitely missed at the moment. Once the takeover goes through, we should name one of the stands after Keith, says Darren. Well done, Keith, you're a legend, says Mark Stafford. If any of the Toon fans weren't sure about Keith, I'm sure the way he's come across, they will be positive now, says Andrew. Alan White says, well done, Keith, for doing something instead of going on social media moaning about it like others do. NUFC HQ, he's put a few points across. He says, this takeover will happen. I just hope the Premier League are exposed for how corrupt they really are. Keep the pressure up, Keith. You know, there's lots of people, you know, just very, very positive. People don't expect you to do it all on your own, mate. And, you know,
I think it's the, I think it's the risk if it didn't happen. And you sit there and you think, you get up in the morning and you just put blinkers on and you say, I'm going to get this, we can do this. And you look at what you've got on them and you think, well, I wouldn't like to defend this. You know, you feel in a real strong position. But then you think of, which gets us a bit like is, people talk about Newcastle fans like idiots, talk about us thinking we should win the league and things like that. All we want to do is compete. All I want to do, you know, like when Barry Venison played at that position, he rattled people, and you look at Paul Bracewell, and God rest his soul, Gary Speed. All Newcastle fans want, these punters, like, they're deluded. We just want to try. We want to, when they blow that whistle at the start, we want to think we've got a chance. At half time, whatever the result, we think we can have a go. And I look at this and I just think to myself that the fans filled, they've got the record for the most attendance for any championship side. So we've put more fans in the stadium for a championship game season than anybody else. And Man United's been relegated, but they couldn't match us numbers wise. We've got the record for the most fans that ever watch a side through a championship. And then people come on here and say, do you think the ground will be big enough? It wasn't big enough for the championship. So it's not big enough now. And Steve's got a good point earlier, is we are in trouble. But I think that's why they want to sell it. I think that, you know, I think that they can always sell to somebody else. But I think that COVID's been a big shake-up. But is that ground? I think that ground would need 25,000 more seats, sort of minimum. I think it needs to be 75, 80,000, because that's the fan base. That's the passion of the area. That's the region. Do you think that?
Absolutely.
Keith, I'll tell you something, mate, mate. You're not carrying us. We're here to carry you.
Yeah.
And there's a weight of a fan base behind you. And there's a weight of the people watching the show tonight looking at these comments. We're here to carry you, mate. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Lots of people asking, is there anything they can do to help, Keith? You know, is there anything that you need from the fans?
There's something massive. If I tried to get a message over tonight, it's a great question. And remiss of us not to have brought it up. What you can do is understand that if you're feeling down and if you think the takeover's not going to happen, the best thing to do is just drop off it for a while. You know, and I do. I've just been offered to sit on a charity board with Chris Dackers and Peter Baker for mental health, and it's something that's, you know, I find close to my heart. But if this takeover is rattling you, and rather than let people criticise us and say, look what they're doing, kidding fans on, nobody's leading anybody on. We're just a bunch of fans that's desperate for something to happen. If this doesn't happen, I can't think beyond that. You know, if it's true in history that Dennis Wise lost us the deal on the Manchester City takeover, I look at Man City and I think what that's done to the city of Manchester. I look at what's attractions, what's brought the tourism, what's brought the hotel trade in Manchester, and what this investment does. And you look at a pro-Brexit Newcastle and think, what would it, you know, somebody was arguing me whether it was $1 billion or under $1 billion, and I think, really? When Rafa comes back and designs that training ground the way it's got to be? You've seen Leicester's this week. You've seen Leicester's which is 100 plus million plus the price of the land. Then you think of this stadium, which needs 20 to 25,000 more seats. Then you think of the tourism it will bring in. This isn't a 350 million purchase. It'll go way over $1 billion. Think of how much land and development the Rubens will do. I saw a thread the other day where people were debating what the Rubens brought to the table. Honestly, and I thought, I bet the person never spent £1 and they'd go on about the Rubens. I tell you what, I would like in my back pocket how many thousands, how many tens of thousands they've put at the food bank through COVID. So what I'm saying to you is why question it? Why not just get behind it? And there's some great things being on screen tonight because it's helped me. I saw something on screen which Mitch picked up on, where it says, "How could any Newcastle fan not want this?" That's my thing now, and so you can help us by understanding us.
Yeah.
What I am is just a bog standard fan. I know a lot of people with legal background and spent 25 million legal fees in the past. So I've got a good idea. So if somebody comes on and says, I'm a solicitor, and I don't know them, chances are because they haven't got a clue about competition law. And chances are they're not a QC, top of the tree. So I won't know them. If they want to yodel on a soapbox, giving legal advice out, when I haven't got experience in sports law or competition law, and I just think, more the fool them that listen. But for me, I wouldn't get into that fight. But it'll be good if you understand that I have got the background, I have got the desire, I've given it the commitment, I've given me word that I'll see it through at the end. So in return, can you just understand that I'm not a site that wants to debate with you. If you don't want this takeover, then me and you is different. Please just cut us a bit slack and let us journey on for this takeover.
Yeah.
And if Henry Morris gets it, I'll be the bloke at the back with the raincoat on that you don't recognise. If this bloke with the Saudi gets it, this bloke comes over the hill we keep hearing about, well, I won't be there. But if these get it, then, you'll see us in the pub. There's something else which I just want to talk to you about is a lot of people championing the idea because the EPL leaked some information deliberately through a guy called Ben Jacobs, and he said that we didn't have standing, and that's come up in a lot of conversations. So I thought it was wise tonight to tell you what standing is. Standing is having risk in the game. It's having a loss. So Mike Ashley has standing because they've lost him a £350 million purchase. The buyers have standing because they've prepared this deal and spent a lot of money and have been deprived of deal through what I think is immoral and probably anti-competitive legal reasons. They tell me I haven't got standing. Let us tell you what standing is, because there's a lot of myths talking by people and inverted commas solicitors don't know what they're talking about. So I'll tell you what standing is. I have a mate in Newcastle called Mickey Edmondson. Okay, you probably know him. He's a DJ and Beyond bar. He has two shops, one in St Andrew's Place and one in the Metro Centre called The Back Page. And Mickey has got hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of stock. And he's had a tough time through COVID. And I'm shouting him out because he's my pal. And if people, when he came on the show, a few people went and bought off him. Mickey Edmondson has more standing than the EPL would dare to defeat. And I could have just run a case. I could have joined Mickey Edmondson in my case if I wanted more standing. Because would Mick Edmondson sell more in The Back Page if this deal went through, or if it stays like it is? You tell me. And it's estimated he'd have doubled or trebled his turnover if the PIF consortium went through. And that's standing. So please, 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 you've said us earlier, can we help you? Aye. Stop telling us rubbish that somebody's posted that an expert, because I'll tell you what, it's not worth my effort in answering it. I'll tell you who else has got standing just while we're on the subject, because these idiots tell you they know what they're talking about. Standing is where Amanda Staveley turned around and said, if we'd bought that club, we'd have refunded all the ticket money. That gives every single season ticket holder at Newcastle standing. And standing isn't about £1 or £1 million. Standing is £1, a unit of cost, a loss. And it doesn't matter how much the loss is, as long as you can quantify a loss. So every single season ticket holder would have had standing. So go back to my argument earlier. If War Fund hadn't been slaughtered by people, it's a scam. and the people give all the money back, and then people that run War Fund, right? They're not part of NCSL, but people know who they are. If they'd got a fund, this would have been in court, and every season ticket holder could have joined that claim, and the Premier League would have had a difficult position to defend. The next people who have standing, well, before I get off my soapbox, is the people who work at the club, because some people got furloughed, and if Amanda had bought it, she wouldn't have furloughed the staff. They've got standing, because the takeover would have meant that. So when people come on Twitter and tell me about standing, well, it's like telling your granny about false teeth. I understand what standing is. And I didn't go and stick 5 figures or 3 figures or whatever it is into something because I didn't know what I was talking about. But also I didn't do it so somebody would come online to try and make a name for themselves to tell people a load of crap. And there's a saying in life, if you chuck shit at a wall, flies will get round it. There'll always be flies smelling around that shit. And that's what happens on social media. And that's why I don't engage with all these people and so-called experts. When I've got some money to spend, it's my money, I've worked for it. Then what I do is I go out and say, who's the best people legally to fight this for me? And then I go and find them. I don't shout about who's doing it, but I do get, we're going back to that question of what can you do is, just tell the people to go on somebody else's site. Tell them to go and preach that story or their expertise to somebody else, because I am sick of it. I'm bored with people telling me, I am Steve. I'm pleased you clapped with it, because you three's took up more crap in this journey than I'm capable of taking. But there comes a time when I sit there and think, and I'll put my neck above the parapet. Yeah, I've been shot at by nutters. I've been called a cunt. Thank you. What a great compliment. Is that how much I aggravate you? Well, I tell you what it is, be prepared, because I'm not going to go away. And I'm going to come at you. And like the Premier League, I'm going to be your biggest mosquito. But please, if you're going to get somebody to tell me the word do and don't know, and when you sit there, the same people have criticised Robert O'Donoghue, Nick DeMarco, really, and you listen to them, and the post goes up, and then they take it down. Come on, man. The only person's gain out of them is their coverage or their votes or their listeners or whatever. But please, don't. If you come to me with this, and at the end of all this, those people who say I've unfairly blocked you, I'll meet you. I'll meet you face to face. I'll sit with you and I'll tell you exactly what I think. You tell me what you think of me. I'll do it like a man. But while I'm doing something free of charge to you on my money, then give us respect. And the same with them 3 lads can write to Boris Johnson if they want. And all you fans out there can write to Boris Johnson. But when I do it and it takes us 3 days and I have 6 attempts and I come with a letter that I think hits the points and then asks Boris, why did you say that you can't get involved when freedom of information says you can? Then please, let's write that letter. Let us write it in respect that it came from the heart. And if all you can do in life is just criticise 99.7% of Newcastle fans who want betterment for their kids, their fathers and themselves, then I've got to say to you, you need to look at yourself. Because if you set a business up tomorrow to target 0.3% of a market, I think you're a numpty.
Can I just say, Keith, can I just say, I've just had a message from somebody that says they've never known me been so quiet for so long in the entire life. And that's all down to you. And you know what? I have listened to you intently for 2 hours and I am enthralled, and I'm just so wrapped up in what you've said. It's been absolutely fantastic. But I know you, and I know and I want to get this over to every Newcastle fan who's watching this. This has been 2 hours of absolute from the heart. Keith Patterson, this is what this man is about. This is a proper Newcastle fan who is doing this for all the right reasons, and it's been an education, Keith. It really has. An education for me, who's actually older than you, and I'm hoping it's an education for all the young fans who haven't actually experienced what we have as Newcastle fans over the years, the Wembley trips, the European trips. And this is an opportunity that we're hanging on to because we want them to experience what we've had, football fans, because they deserve it. Those young kids deserve it. us old guys need a reprise. We need to get back out there, and we need the opportunity. But more than else, we want to go there with my nephews, want to go there with the kids, with my grandkids, whatever, and be part of it again. And it's something that for the last 15, 20, 25 years, the excitement that we've had going, I mean, when was the last time we went to a semi-final? It was 2005. That's probably, and even then we went with a manager that we couldn't stand, for God's sake. We went to Wembley with two managers that we couldn't stand. But you know what? We still embraced it. We still got excited about it.
Still swamp Wembley, did we?
We still talk about it. And we do it. And that's everything that you've come over today has just like got me so excited and so enthralled and so passionate about the black and white stripes again. And you've done it in 2 hours that some people have managed to wreck over the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 13 years. And I just want to say, Keith, thank you so much for what you've said. It's been an education, and it's been something that has been wanting for so long. You're an absolute hero in my eyes, and I've known you for years. And mate, I cannot say any more.
Yeah, Mitch, anything you want to say to Keith?
Okay, like I said before, Keith, don't take it all on your shoulders. There's a weight of thousands behind you that should be carrying you.
Yeah.
And we will. If people want to know why we've remained positive throughout even some of the darkest of days, because we've had a collective of people that will bounce stuff off each other. The two Steves have lifted me up when I've been pissed off about things and down about things. We've got a fourth partner now, and use it, Keith. We're all here. You reach out, mate.
I couldn't thank you enough for that. And before Steve speaks, because his show, I want to thank you all for letting us come on. I want to thank, when I started this journey, I never dreamt that I was going to have 8,800 Twitter followers. I didn't know what it meant. And people said that the utopia of Twitter. I spoke to a guy on Twitter, said, if you can get 100,000 views to a tweet, he says, I would sell that for thousands. That's what it means in monetary terms. And we were getting 300,000 and 400,000. And I think, God, what have I done here? And tonight, when I see all the things written on there, I think to myself, like, God, what you doing? You know, like, and I just really want to fast forward the cases. I just want to get the cases, but I'm pretty sure the action will start this month, and I really believe we're on the winning side. And if I've got it wrong, then I'll apologise now. But I have spent money, and I have done a lot of digging, and I've done more digging on the dirt than you can imagine, and I've had a good team doing it. And it's, you know, there is me and Gordon Stein in this, and we both want to thank you. You know, he's been abused online. He's been told, CEO FD, that he's defrauded his bloody LinkedIn and whatever. Honestly, you wouldn't believe. What I'd say to them people, I think it's time to park it now. And I think it's time to get the database and to get the fan base all as one again. And so all I've preached all the way through this. And, you know, I know there's people still griping about, you know, I would just say to the people who don't want to take over this, to go on to another side, leave me alone. I won't bother you, you don't bother me. But I ain't backing down from you. And I ain't, you know, but nobody will intimidate. The man to intimidate us hasn't been born, so nobody's going to intimidate us. And what I'm saying to you is just respect that this is my choice. We all have choices in life, and I choose to spend some money and make some tough decisions and give my life up for 6 months. Free of charge, no wages, and just, you know, I haven't earned for a year. So just respect that, and just realise that I don't want to read any more your drivel about what's not going to happen, because every time I check your drivel out, it always comes unfounded. None of your predictions are true. I know there's people out there who are in professional roles want to be the person that said, I told you so. Well, wait till it collapses, and then I'll bow to you, or I'll just say, yeah, you've got it right. And these three on here, I'm going to say this. I want to thank, first of all, the fan base, because it's humbling listening to you. You know, I stand next to you, and I'm just a totally ordinary fan. And for you to say all that to me is just beyond what I could ever expect. And I take it on behalf of me and Gordon Stein, a man I've never met, but I trust, and it's the biggest thing I could ever give to a stranger. I trust him, and we've worked together like Trojans. And I want to say to you three that I'm sorry to blow your gaff a bit tonight, but I want to tell everybody out there, these three know an awful lot more than they've ever let on. And they've got that much dignity that they've took real rubbish off people to an insult. And you don't know what you're talking about. If you believe me tonight, believe me one thing, they know what's going on. And that's it. Thank you. Over to you, Steve.
Keith, been a fantastic show. We could have done another couple of hours, to be fair. Paul Gray has asked what a lot of people have asked. He said, will you come back on? It's been amazing to have you on the show. Will you come back on at some point, do you think?
The answer was, today, and the lead up was no. I mean, I didn't want to come on, but I felt as though people were using our site. A bloke said today on the site, Twitter's all about debate and discussion. It might be, but our site isn't, because we haven't got enough people. And there's only going to be me there. And somebody said something about a comment was put. Yeah, other people had the social media site from the start. And I think they wrote things on Twitter, which I don't agree with. I took it back for them reasons. And there's nobody in the last 5 weeks has been insulted on Twitter, because I don't insult people. Equally, I don't listen to rubbish. So will I come back on? It's gone better than I expected, in the sense that it's, you know, I feel the warmth of the people. So the answer is, this morning it was a no, and now it's a maybe or probably a yes. And I don't want, this feels like the hardest interview I've ever done. It's like 2 hours of Keith, and I'm not a bloke who, I don't like, it's I don't know, it's just not what I come on for. I come on to see a takeover. That's my only agenda, is I want to take over. After that, I want to go and watch pre-match and, you know, have a few beers. And so, if there's a need to come on, or if things start hotting up, and you three, it's your show, and I feel tonight I've stolen a bit, and I don't like comfortable doing that. So the answer is yeah. If it's right for you three and the fans, then I'll think about it, yeah.
Yeah, well, listen, you'll always be welcome. It's been superb. It'll be nice to get you on to celebrate the takeover, and then essentially just to have you on talking about football, Keith, because you're a fan, just like all of us. And, you know, you've been very well received. I've only seen one negative comment, and it was only against the takeover. It wasn't against you. And that was just somebody who doesn't agree with Saudi taking part in football. And that's somebody else's opinion. And I respect that. I respect that.
I respect that. I do.
I respect it. And good, you know,
it's choice.
Yeah, of course it is. And we're not against people with other opinions on this show. You know, it's an open debate. We're happy to discuss that with everybody. But, you know, Rafa Benitez is God. We'll leave him with the final comment. He just says, "We love you, Keith." So there you go, mate. You've made a big impression. Yeah, well done, mate. Round of applause from me as well. Tomorrow we are back, 5:00. Newcastle in the FA Cup. It could be the shortest cup run we've had this season, I think, and against Arsenal. You never know, though. We've got match day live with the worldwide squad. We will have an Arsenal representative on as well. And I think I'll leave you with a picture of this man tonight. What I want to say is, I think the Premier League, after what Keith said tonight, are under pressure. I think Ashley's reign will be ashes to ashes within the next few months. And then I think when we get PIF, Amanda and the Rubens in, I think we can all look forward to the golden years. Rest in peace, Mr. David Bowie.
We could be heroes, Steve.
We could be heroes. Lads, been an absolute pleasure. Take care. Good night. God bless.
Cheers, everyone.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again.